Hi everyone, it's Chef Rose, and it is Eclair Paste Day, and I'm so glad you could be here with me. We are going to do the Eclair paste in this part one, but we're also going to do the chocolate glaze that's going to go on top of the eclairs. So look for the chocolate glaze recipe under the file portion of Canvas. So let's go ahead and start the chocolate glaze. All right, so in this little pot, I have 6 ounces of butter cut into small pieces. I have 2 ounces of water and 2 ounces of corn syrup. It's a really great glaze recipe. I've been using this since my first days as a pastry chef back in the early 90s. So very simple, 4 ingredients, and then of course chocolate. So there's 12 ounces of Callebaut semi-sweet chocolate. And what's nice about this glaze is it's pretty easy to put together. It has a good 2 month shelf life in the refrigerator, whatever you don't use. And it's pretty simple to prepare. Water, corn syrup. Now, if you don't have corn syrup, you can use another liquid sugar such as honey. I've used maple syrup, which is nice. You get a little maple in the background. Agave could be used. So what the corn syrup does is gives the glaze a beautiful shine and kind of gives it a nice viscosity. So even when this glaze is, you take it out, maybe eat an eclair right out of the fridge, the glaze has a softness to it from that liquid sugar, such as the corn syrup. So really we're just going to melt the butter, get the mixture hot. So chocolate really doesn't take a lot to melt. It melts in your hand sometimes, right? So I don't have to bring this to a boil. I just want to get it nice and hot. If it's about 100, 120 degrees, it'll melt the chocolate very nice. And the reason I'm making it now is I don't want it super hot when I'm ready to dip the eclairs after I fill them. So look for part 2 of this video, which will be showing you how to fill the eclairs with the custard and then top them with the chocolate glaze. So I don't want the glaze too hot when I dip it. Otherwise, it's going to be a very thin coating on top of the eclair. So by cooling it down a little bit, it'll thicken up and be a nice, nice texture going on top of the eclairs. So you can see the butter is all melted. Now, if you buy a block of chocolate at the store, you could certainly use, I would use Ghirardelli chocolate chips. Those work fine. But if you get a block of Ghirardelli or a block of another good quality chocolate, just chop it. If the pieces are smaller, it's going to melt faster. Perfect. I can see steam rising, so it means it's getting hot. So I'm going to turn off the heat and add the chocolate all at once. Oops, piece of chocolate tried to get away. So you can just stir till it comes together. I try not to whisk. You can whisk a little bit, but basically I don't want to add a lot of air to it. So, all right, so while that's melting, I'm going to show you the prep I have ready for the eclair paste, which is on page 330. And so in a pot, a 4-quart pot, I have, now this is a half a recipe, just a half. A full makes a lot of eclairs. So this is 9 ounces of water, 4.5 ounces of butter cut into smaller pieces, as you can see. Add a little bit of salt, and that's about it that goes in the pot. And then I have my flour ready to go. Excuse me, I don't remember how many ounces that was. Again, it's half a recipe. And then the eggs. So I have about 5 eggs, and based on what I know about this recipe, we always make it in class. It usually takes about 5 eggs for half a recipe. And then I have my pastry bags all set and ready to go. And I have 2 different tips. I have a plain round tip. I'm going to show you how to do cream puffs. And then I have a star tip to do the eclairs. So you see I just took some glasses I have at home, and that way I can kind of use them like those nice cones we have at school. I have the oven set at 375 convection. You can see the fan going on the display there. And then I have sheet pans ready. And this is a silicone mat, and it's a new silicone mat I got. And it's supposed to be for like bread, but also pot au jus. And what's cool about it, can you see that? It's got tons of little holes in it. So basically it circulates air. So I'm going to actually try and do, for the first time, pipe pot au jus or eclair paste on the silicone mat, which I've got, but also on parchment as well. And I want to see if there's any difference. So I'm going to bake the pans one at a time in a 375 oven, and then kind of look at the difference later on part 2 to see if there was any difference, especially in the bottom. Did they get browner in the bottom because of the microscopic holes in this silicone mat? It's supposedly really good for a loaf of bread too. So I'm going to try that as well. All right, let's go check the chocolate glaze. Perfect. All right. It's melting really well. And that's it to this glaze. Really super easy. You can use a semi-sweet chocolate. You could use a darker, like a 60% too. A lot of my students, though, when we've used darker, they didn't care for it as much. But certainly you can change it up as you'd like. Pretty much all I have in the house is semi-sweet. And I'm happy with this. This recipe actually came from my first boss at my first job, who had gone to Cordon Bleu in France. So I've been using this ever since for pastries like eclairs, but also to glaze a cake for a lot of applications. It's a really good standard recipe. And as a pastry chef, you'll see it's nice to have some good basic recipes that you can use for a lot of applications. All right, so I'm going to put that off to the side and move on to our pot au jus or eclair paste. Pot au jus, if you read the text, is basically pot is pastry and jus is cabbages, because when you do the cream puffs, they kind of look like cabbages, little cabbages. So I've got the heat on like a medium. So what's really important is the fat, the butter. As you can see, like I said, I made sure it's small pieces. I want it to be completely melted by the time the water comes to a boil. Now, certainly, as I mentioned in my lecture notes, you could do half water, half milk, or all milk if you prefer, but keep in mind, all water will get us a crispier outside exterior of the eclair or cream puff, whereas if you use milk, it tenderizes it, makes it a little softer. So it's really your choice. I prefer just water. I like it kind of crispy, because keep in mind, once you refrigerate pot au jus and you've filled it, whether with a custard or if it's a cream puff, whipped cream, the shell will soften in the refrigerator. So if you use milk, then it's even going to be softer. So I just prefer water. It's cheaper too. Okay. All right. So what we want to do, we want to bring this to a rapid boil. Not just a simple boil, a rapid boil. So what that means is I want to see the mixture start to bubble up so much that it starts rising along the sides of the pan. And you'll see what I mean as we get there. Now this recipe doesn't have any sugar. Doesn't need it. Well, when you eat the dough by itself, it's pretty bland. It's the filling that's going to have all the flavor, really. I actually made this once for a restaurant as a tiramisu eclair. And to this hot water mixture, I added coffee, instant coffee, so the shells had a coffee flavor, and then did a tiramisu filling for the filling, and then topped it with chocolate. So they were wonderful. So there's certainly a lot of variations you can do to this. If you wanted to, you could add sugar. A little bit of sugar will give more color to the shells as well. Okay. So I want to have my flour ready. I'm going to put down the tripod. I have my bowl of flour. It's bread flour. We want to use a strong protein flour because these shells become hollow as they're baked. And so you need a strong protein flour to be able to support that structure. So the two ingredients that give us structure in these Éclair paste products are flour and the eggs as well. Both will contribute to the structure. Please make sure you read about, in lecture note, all the ingredient functions. Eggs have actually quite a few functions in this product. And Éclair paste is a very unique dough in that you cook it on the stovetop, the eggs are added, and then you bake it. So again, it's a very unique and very unique pastry. Even a chef should know how to make pâte de choux. There's definitely some savory applications. Please make sure you read about them in the lecture notes. All right, so I'm waiting for it to come to a rapid boil. So getting there. I actually at school like to use a wooden spoon, something very sturdy, but I don't have one here. All right, because the mixture will get pretty thick and stiff. So you can see it's starting to bubble. But I'm going to wait till it starts to really get a rapid boil. And then I'll turn the heat down a little bit. So I still have the heat on like a medium high a little bit. Okay. And the minute it starts rising up, all right, that's what you want. You want a rapid boil. It's starting to climb up the pan a little bit. Perfect. I'm going to turn it down to a lower heat. Add the flour all at once and stir, stir, stir with the low heat on. You want to make sure all that flour gets incorporated, and then you'll be cooking off that flour. This really only takes about a minute. So how do you know when it's ready? It's cooked long enough. The dough will come into a ball. You'll see it's going to transform. So you're cooking off the flour on a low heat. Let me put the tripod down. All right. So you see how it's coming to a ball now? It's all kind of congregating. At school, usually in the pan, you'll see a film. I have a non-stick pan, so you can't quite see it, but that's usually how you know when it's done. So two indications that you know it's ready. Comes to a ball like this. Look at, it's one big ball of dough. And at school in those pans, if it's not a non-stick, you'll see a film on the bottom of the pan. Turn off the heat. Yeah, on a non-stick one, yeah, I'm not really seeing too much of a film. Okay, now we're going to move to the mixer. Paddle attachment. You're going to put the pot de choux into the mixer and turn it on low. You want to just kind of get the excess steam off. So that's going to take about a minute. I don't know if, yeah, you can see the steam, right? So So you want to get that initial heat off. So let it go for about a minute. Now the eggs are going to be added one at a time, and you'll see why. We're trying to create an emulsion, and I'm sure you remember that term. Remember, eggs help to create an emulsion, and that's what it's going to do here as well. But we don't want to overwhelm the batter and put all 5 eggs in at once. We want to add them one at a time. And some days you may need 5 eggs. Some days you might need 6. Maybe you need 5.5. And that's what I'm going to show you is how do you know when you've added enough eggs. And if you don't add enough eggs, you're going to have a really dense finished eclair paste. If you put too many eggs, then whatever you pipe is going to lose its shape once it's baked, and you won't be quite sure what it was supposed to be. So it's finding that right balance, and that of course is something I teach you in classes. How do you know if you have enough? All right, so give it a little bit more time. There's lots of videos online on YouTube about making eclair paste. And of course, a lot of people have a lot of different little methods, but this is the way I've made it, always made it, and it works really well. All right, so the mixture is still going to be hot, but that's why you add the eggs with the mixer turned on. All right, so I'm going to add my first one, and I'm going to show you what the mixture looks like after I add a couple eggs, and then after I add maybe 3 or 4 eggs. And you can see. So it's a very dry mixture, very dull finish, and as you add the eggs, they'll turn into a shiny, very smooth mixture. All right, so add the second one once the first egg is completely mixed in. I generally don't break the eggs because what if I only need 4 and I've broken 5? So I kind of break them as I go. All right, it's mixing in real nice. And again, you don't need this on a high speed. I think I have it on speed 3. You don't want to need to add a lot of air to it. All right, so I'm going to turn it off, scrape it down, and kind of show you the texture. Make sure it gets all scraped down, off the paddle as well. All right, so let me show you what it looks like. It's very thick. Kind of comes right off the spatula. I'm trying to get it to, if I had a wooden spoon, it would hold on. So you can see, all right. So time for more eggs. This is number 3. I once worked at a restaurant where the sous chef was asked to make some pot au jus or eclair paste, and he was too proud to ask for help because I don't think he really remembered or knew how. So the first batch didn't come out very well. So he came to me and told him what to do and made another batch, and that still didn't come out well. So I think it took him 3 times to get what the chef wanted. So this is definitely something you can do savory-wise as well. And actually, I should probably talk to Lampros and Dean about doing savory pot au jus. Maybe maybe they should do. Oh, they should do it in the garde class. So that way you make it twice, not only in baking 1, but then in a cooking class as well, and then do savory applications with it. All right, look, that was 4. So let's take a look. Same thing. Let's scrape it down, and you can start to see even it coming off the paddle. It's a little looser now. Still not quite enough. All right. Supposedly, and I don't know if this is really true, but the reason one day it might take more eggs than another is how long you had it cooking on the stovetop. So whether that's true or not, but there are times in class where somebody might need 5 eggs, somebody might need 5.5. And you can do a half an egg. You would just break the egg, whisk it together, and then divide it in half approximately. Because when you make a small batch like this, even that half an egg will make a difference. And actually, I might grab one more egg, because I might need another one. So I'm going to take a look at it, see if I do need another one. Again, I don't want it too thin, but I want to get as many eggs as I can into it, which is going to contribute to the steam. The only thing leavening this product, making it rise in the oven, is steam. And that comes from the egg and, of course, the water. All right. All right, so let's take a look. Let's use the... yeah, I actually think I can use one more egg. Now, see, again, usually at class, I had 5, but today, I'm going to add 6. And you'll see the difference between that 5 and the 6. Perfect. It's looking, I can tell it's got a nice sheen to it already. It's got a nice viscosity. Beautiful. All right, so you can see, let's put some on there. See how it drops? Oh, perfect. Shiny, and it's not falling off, but it definitely comes off now, the paddle, and which is I want. I want it to flow very nicely, but not like water. And unfortunately, if you add too many eggs, there's nothing you can do to fix it. So that's why you kind of are cautious about it. You can always add a half an egg, and then you go, oh, maybe I need the whole one, and go add another half. Because you can't, this is one dough, you can't go back and fix it. So let me get you one more shot of how it looks.